Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Just Daf. Today we're doing Nedarim Daf It number 19. Great share for you today, of course, as usual. Let's get started. The top of Yud and Aleph. The first line, Amalei Abaye. Abaye says to Rav Zera. Rav Zera tried to answer a question from our last Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Stam Daram Lahach, where a person is a nether and we're not sure if he intended to make a nether or not. So it's a machlokes. That's not machlokes. The Mishnah says go lahachmer because of savik derais al chumra. It's nether is din dal rice. Savik derais al chumra. In contrast to a Mishnah in Masachas Nazir, which says suffik nazir as lahachim. Now we know nazir is a type of nether, so why by a nazir suffik lakula? Especially nazir is also din dal rice. So how can we go lakula over there? And our Mishnah Yerchem is and Sam the Daram lahachmer we go lachumra. So Reb Zera tried to answer one opinion. Right, the Mishnah in Mesachas Nazir is Rebbe Lezer, and our Mishnah is Rabbanon. Abaye questions this now. Abaye, B'mayo Kimto, Safing Naziros Lahakil, Lezer. Who did you establish that Mishnah in Mesachas Nazir like? Like Rebbe Lezer, Ema Seifa, saying the end of the Mishnah. Safik B'choros, Echad B'chorai Adam, Echad B'chori Behema, Ben Tmeya, Ben Tahora, Motzi Mechaver Al-Araya. If you're not sure if you have a B'chor, there's three types of Bechor discussed here. Bechor Adam is the firstborn son, the mother's firstborn son. You're not sure if it's a Bechor, if she had a child beforehand, or you have a Bechor Behema, one of your cattle, gives the mother his firstborn cow or calf, whatever. So we're not sure if it's the firstborn or not. Maybe the mother had a calf before. And also by a donkey. There's then a Bechor also by a donkey after a dima donkey, your firstborn donkey. That's Smei over here. So you're not sure. So a Bechor is normally given to a Kohen. So you can keep the Bechor. The Yisrael can keep the Bechor, Behema, Bechor Tmeya, the donkey. You can keep the firstborn son. If you're not sure of this mother, if she had a child with somebody else, we don't know. So it's upon the Kohen to bring a raya in order to be motzi the money for pigeon ben, or the animal in terms of the donkey, or in donkey you would give a say, you would give a sheep to the Kohen in order to be poted by the chamor, and the bechor of a kosher animal you give to the Kohen. So it's upon the Kohen to bring, because it's dinei mamonis, right? It's property over here. So the burden of proof is upon the Kohen. You're the muchsak, you're the person who owns it right now. So therefore, he has to bring a proof when it comes to mammon. The Tani Allah, we taught a brayser regarding that. Nonetheless, if it's a suffix bechor behema, so there's a din of bechor behema. You're not allowed to work it, not allowed to do work with it, and also you can't shear it. So those are aspects of isser v'heter over there. So those apply because something that I chumra, and that exactly is part of the second half of the Mishnah in Taros, which at the beginning says something that hakel, which which is the second half of the Mishnah talking about that koi, where we said Lezer goes to Hakil. Here we see by Siram Bagiza Avoda, by Savid Rice to go to Chumra. How do you reconcile it? Amrle, I come to Damas Kedusha Ba'Meileh, Kedusha Ba'Bidesh Be'Deyada. You can't compare the cases when it comes to a Bechor, firstborn animal. So the Kedusha comes automatically, it's the firstborn animal. So therefore, there you go l'chumra. Here we're talking about naziros, whether a person accepted upon naziros upon himself or not. So in a case where we're mesovek, we're not sure if he had in mind makabel naziros. In that case, Lezer rules leniently and says, you go l'kulo. So Eli kasha, if you do have a question, hakasha. There's a different question on Rebbe Lezer. Safik mashkin l'tami acherim tohor divrei meir. If you have mashkin, one of the Zion mashkin, right? Yad, shach, dam, yayin, dam, shemen, challah, milk, tal, dam, what's the second dalit? Dvash, and mem, mayim. Those are 7 mashkin, right? So there's a question we're going to see whether mashkin can get tuma. Usually the Zion mashkin are significant, because when a fruit or a vegetable comes detached from the ground, and one of these mashkin falls in it, it's machshir of the fruit of the vegetable, or the yerek, or the grass, or whatever it is, to be able to makabel tuma, and you also have to have das. This is the important part. But mashkin, you have to have das. You have to have a ratzon that you want it to become mukshar lakabel tuma. So what about these liquids becoming tummy themselves, right? So the Gemara in Pesachim weighs in on this. Savik mashkli tummy. In terms of becoming tummy, they are tummy. Even in a safek, right? A safek, whether the mashkim are tummy. So you go lechumra. So safek daraisa lechumra. L'tame acherim tahor. Whether you have these mashkim and they are tummy, whether they touch something else, we don't know if they touch something else. So transmitting tumah to something else, then you go lakula, because being with tummy, other things only din rabbanan divrei Meir. That's Reb Meir. It says the same Rebbe we're talking about. He rules like Reb Meir. Umi srila ezer l'tami tami. So the Gemara first asks an internal question: does Reb Lezer himself hold l'tami tami, right? For the mashkin themselves to become tame, in a safek case that would become tame, Atanya, Lezer Omer, ain't tumah l'mashkin kol ikar. He says mashkin can't even become tame at all, even if they're vaday makabel tumah. They're not never become tame. Teda. How do you know this? Shahid Yosef ben Yezer Yisrael El Kim Sadachin. Mashkin Beis Melchai Dachin is a Gemara in Pesachim. Yosef ben Yezer says two testimonies. One is that a certain grasshopper is tahor, I mean it's kosher, nothing to do with our suga, and also Mashkin Beis Melchai Dachin. You have when you shech in the base of Migdal, you shech on the animals, the blood was squirted from the animal. The blood is always considered to be tahor. So the Gemara first delineates the machlokas. Hanichal the Shmuel the Amar. Shmuel says no, the blood in the base on Migdash itself could become tame, right? It can't be matame acherim, it can't be tame something else. If the blood become tame, it can't be tame something else. Aval tumas aspen yishben, but the blood could become tame itself. Shapriel the Rav, according to Rav, the Amar Dachin Mamish, he holds that the blood that emanates from the animal that you shefted is Torah legamre ma'ikal meimar, right? Obviously, when he rules, right, earlier, Rabbi Lezer rules that mashkin themselves could become tummy. That's obviously derabanan, and therefore mashkin based on zechaya are tor midoraisa. Derabanan they're tummy, so savik derabanan should go lakula. So it's an internal question on Rabbi Lezer, because again, dam or mashkin becoming tummy is totally in your das, right? Whether you wanted it, your rutzon. Like it says at the beginning of Masechah Shabbos, your rutzon, you want the rutzon to these mashkin to accept tumah, and also to be, serve as mashkin to metami something else, or makshir zroim, or things like that. So it depends on your intent, which is like nazirus. And other holes over here, according to Rav, right? They're dach and mamish that it's derabanan, and that's why a suffix, right? He rules earlier a suffix whether their tummy itself is mashkin. You go lakula because they're abanan. Tumas mashkin is only they're abanan. Make her a din. Therefore, if it's tummy anything which is tummy d'oraisa, you go lechumra. So when it comes to intent and it's a suffix d'oraisa, even by intent, which is by nazirus and Nedarim and becoming hukshar lekabel tuma, you go lechumra. So how could we say Lezer before says that suffix d'oraisa when it comes to nazirus and things like that, you go lakula? So you can't say it's Lezer. Ella, so we have to offer a different reconciliation of our Mishnah with the Mishnah Maseches Nazir. Ha Rabbi Yehuda, ha Rabbi Shimon, right? One Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda and one is Rabbi Shimon as follows. Asanya Hari Nazir Yesh Bekriya Zeh Me'akor. The Brisa says, I accept upon myself in Nazirus, as long as I'll t'nai, on condition that this kri, right, this pile of grain has me'akor, large amount of grain. 100 kor is 30 sa. It's a big amount of grain. Right, he says, I'm a Nazir. If I'm so wealthy, Hashem blessed me so much, I have me'akor might. He goes to measure and he finds it stolen or lost. He can't measure it. Ravida says, Safik Nazirus. Right, you go lahakel. Rabbi Shimon Oser. So our Mishnah, Sam Daram Hachman is Rabbi Shimon. Mishnah Nazirus Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, Ramad Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda. Fine. So once you're saying Rabbi Yehuda goes Safik Nazirus lahakel, we have an internal question on Rabbi Yehuda himself. That a person, right, he doesn't take a risk upon himself, that it's a suffix, he wouldn't be makabel nazirus raminhi. The Gol Muterius. Our Mishnah, and our Mishnah says, if you say truma, you say this piece of meat is asur like truma, in Yehuda it's asur, right? And Galil, it's muteris. The Galil, even though he's not mafarish, he's not explaining that he meant trumas, truma gdola and trumas meiser. They don't know. They would never reference truma as the money used to buy karbanos. Taima they in makirin. So the Gemara infers is because they don't recognize anshe galil. For sure, you could assume they meant to connect the truma gdola and trumas meiser, which is a davar aser, not davar another. Hamakir on the top of Yud Bay is Asurin. If they would recognize it, or they'd be like Yehuda, so then you go L'chumra. Savik the Raisa L'chumra. Even by Nedarim and Naziris, we're assuming Nedarim and Naziris are the same thing, right? It's about the question whether the person's intent, would he accept him on himself in Naziris, Malcolm Safik. So here Rabbi Yehuda seems to be Machmir. I'm a Rava, Gabi Krika Savar. Rava tries to answer when it comes to the case of the pile of wheat, meyakur, he has a big granary full of grain. There, he goes the kula over there because a safek naziris is worse than a vaday naziris. If he's a vaday nazir, let's say for 30 days, at the end of his naziris, he shaves his head, he brings the karbanos, he eat the karban, and his naziris is over. Al Sveiko, if you take a Safek Nazir, right? You can't, if you're a Safek Nazir, it's a pretty bad state. If you're a Safek Nazir, basically, you can't end your Nazir. Part of ending your Nazir is bringing the Karbanos at the end. But in order to bring the Karbanos at the end, you have to be Makdish Karbanos to the base of Mikdash. And there's a chance that you're not a Nazir. So you can't be Makdish Karbanos Misafek because you might bring Chul Nazara. So therefore, you can never end your Nazir. You're basically, within Safek, you'll be a Nazir forever. That's why when it comes to Safek Nazir, the person, if Malkum Safek, wouldn't make himself a Nazir. And that's why the case of the granary, where he's not sure if there's 100 core over there, Safek Nazir, so he didn't accept upon himself. However, by Nedarim, like our Mishnah, right? So then we go Safek, and there's a chiluk in Naziras and a Neder. A Neder, a Safek Neder is not more severe than a Vaday Neder. Amar Rafuna Bar Yehuda Rava Amar Hareini Nazir Ola Mai. So a challenge to this answer that a suffix is worse than a vadai. What about if it includes all cases in the Mishnah, the Brisa Maseches Nazir, where he says his Naziris is conditional on the fact that the granary has a certain amount of wheat over there. He has Nazir Olam. I'm a Nazir forever, right? Usually when we talk about Stam Naziris is 30 days, but he says Nazir forever. Why is the suffix Naziris more stringent than a vadai? I'm Nazir Olam Nami Sfekel Chamer Vadai. There also, the suffix is worse than a vadai. Vadai hech b'tzar or mekel b'tar. Even though he takes Naziris forever, if he grows a lot of hair, right? It's heavy. It's hard to hold so much hair on his head, so he's allowed to shave a little bit off. Well, maybe shalosh behemos. When he does this, the Mishnayos and Maseches Nazir detail how he should do this. He effectively sort of ends his Naziris partially by bringing karbanos, and he's able to shave his head partially, to cut his hair partially, which Nazir is not to do, and he has to continue his Naziris forever. But Sveika, Safek Naziris, even if his hair, goes down to his ankles, he can't cut it under no circumstances. So the Gemara continues to ask, I'm Hareini Nazir Shimshon Mai. Obviously, when it includes a Nazir and all cases of Naziris, and when Maseches Nazir talks about Naziris Shimshon, where you take a Naziris where Shimshon not only was a Nazir for his whole life, but he was a Nazir Mibeten, right? His mother declared him a Nazir even while she was pregnant with him, right? And there, the halakha by Nazir Shimshon is even if his hair grows very long, he cannot shave his head. Amalei Nazir Shimshon lo Tanya. Nazir Shimshon wasn't included in that brisa. Amalei Amar Rav Ada Barava Tanya Nazir Shimshon. He has a brisa which says the exact same case that he makes his Naziris conditional upon having a certain amount of wheat, and it says exactly the words Nazir Shimshon. So presumably the other brisa also includes Nazir Shimshon. Amalei Tanya. If you have a brisa like that, we have a brisa like that. Rav Ashi Amar basically concedes we can't give it an answer. Rav Ashi Amar he Rabbi Yehuda Mishmei Tarfani. That brisa which has Nazir Shimshon, that follows the opinion of Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Yehuda quoted Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Yehuda himself didn't hold like Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon said that Tanya, you don't want to Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon says, Gemara is quoted in various places. The case is two people are standing, and one person says, I'll be a Nazir if this person coming to greet us is a Nazir. And his friend says, I'll be a Nazir if this person coming to greet us is not a Nazir. So both of them made their Nazirs conditional upon whether this person is a Nazir or not a Nazir. Darwin says any time you accept Naziris without being clear, meaning anytime there's a condition that you don't know right now, it's not explicitly clear to you right now, it's never a Nazir. So even the guy turns out to be a Nazir or doesn't turn out to be a Nazir, neither of them are Nazirim, because Naziris has to be explicit. So this Brisa, which has Nazir Shimshon, right, is talking about a case where the person is accepting Naziris on the condition that his granary has Mea Kur. That's conditional. He doesn't know right now. So no matter if he measures or it's stolen and he's now able to measure, he's not accepting Naziris upon himself. However, the other Brisa, which doesn't include Nazir Shimshon, the reason there he's not a Nazir is because a Safing Naziris is more common than a Vada Naziris. But again, the way at this point, the way we're answering the Gemara is that really the stira, original stira, is that the Mishnah on Yochanan based by Nedarim. Nedarim, the Safek Neder is not more common than a Vadai Neder. So therefore, a person by a Safek Neder is willing to take a chance, a Safek Neder, and therefore Safek Deraisa L'chora. Right? Naziris is not willing to take a chance because Safek is worse than a Vadai. So the Gemara just irons out some inconsistencies. Why does the Brisa say, right, he makes his Nazir conditional on a certain amount of grain in his granary, and then it's stolen or lost, right? According, if it's Rabbi Tarfon, right, Tarfon says whether it's stolen or lost is insignificant. The fact that he made a conditional on unknown, right, how much grain is in his granary, we don't know that at this point. It should never take effect. Ella, where it says Shimon. The reason it includes Shadikna is to tell you the strength of Rabbi Shimon who argues Rabbi Yehuda. The Avagav the Nigna Avad. Even though it's stolen or lost, a person, Rabbi Shimon argues on Rabbi Yehuda, that even though a Safek Naziris is more chomer than a Vada Naziris, a person will bring himself into a state of Safek, even by Naziris, and therefore, Safek Deraisa L'chumra, right? And that's why it was Nigno Ever. You're not able to find that. If you're able to figure it out, then you figure it out, and that's why you determine whether he's a Nazir or not. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Stam Truma Yehuda. Yehuda says the end of our mission in Chem and Beis. He says Stam Truma Yehuda Hamakir. And so the word first, if they are Makir, right? Stam Truma Yehuda, we assume they reference Trumas Halishka, right? In Galil, it's mutter because we assume they're not familiar with Trumas Halishka. So Hamakir, and if in Galil they are familiar with Trumas Halishka, Asur, and then it would be a Safek Deraisa L'chumra. Alma Sfeika L'chumra, go L'chumra. Ema Seifa, I say at the very end of our Mishnah on Yochanan Beis, Tam Charam and Yehuda Mutar and Regal Asurin. If you take a neder and you compare it to a Cherem, in Yehuda it's mutar, because we assume they're talking about Kohanim. They have a lot of Kohanim in Yehuda in the Beis Hamikdash. They're giving a matana to the Kohanim. Regal Asurin, the Galil, they're Asur. She'enan Shegalo Makinas Charmei Kohanim. They're not familiar with Charmei Kohanim, right? They assume they're making a Cherem, and the Cherem is Lashon Neder, like the beginning of our Masechta. Hamakirin mutarin, but if they would be familiar with the concept of Chermei Kohanim, we'd be mutar. Alma Sveika Lakula. If we're not sure whether it's Chermei Shemayim or Chermei Kohanim, you go Lakula. Amar Abaye Seifa Relezer Ritzadoki. Abaye says the end of our Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda. It's Relezer Ritzadok. Another time, the time Rabbi Yehuda Omer Stam Trum Yehuda Asura. Rabbi Lezer Ritzadok Omer Stam Charam and Megal Asura. And you see this Brisa states the end of our Mishnah. The name Relezer Ritzadok. He holds that by Nedarim, Stam Nedarim, Safek Nedarim, you go Lakula. Is an interesting shita over here, that even though normally Safek Deraisa L'chumra, by Safek Nedarim, Lezer Tzadok is a unique shita that would be Mekel. Why he'd be Mekel, I have to explain that in Iyad Ben Sion coming up next.